Hey guys, it's Mario from WATL, and today I'm going to talk to you about the origins of WATL and how it came about and how we started it. Now, WATL was actually born out of an idea of when I first started Bad Axe. I knew in order for the sport to have longevity, to last, and not to go down and be a fad, it needed to become something legitimate. It needed to become ultimately a sport. And there needed to be rules, guidelines, and everything surrounding it. And so that was one of the main key factors that I had in mind. So the moment I actually founded and started Bad Axe, that's the first thing that came to mind was if we're gonna be having axe throwing, we need to have leagues. Leagues are gonna help propel, the overall sport and the industry as a whole, and it's gonna help drive more, essentially, revenue into the venue's doors. So I knew it was still too early because when I started Bad Axe, there was only 2 companies in the world that did axe throwing, Bad Axe being one of them. What I found is when Bad Axe started really expanding and blowing up, both in Canada and the US, that's when the tipping point hit, where we started seeing other companies or other entrepreneurs who visited Bad Axe and had a great time. They wanted to take that to their hometown and they wanted to take it to their home city. And so we started getting a lot of emails from these entrepreneurs saying, hey, how do you set up your targets? How do I get started? What kind of wood do you guys use? What kind of axes do you guys use? What are the rules? What are the throwing distances? And so we're getting all these questions. And so that was kind of the trigger point of the original plan that I had to make it a legitimate sport. Once we had kind of, I'll say, somewhat critical mass, it made sense for us to start drafting rules. Part of what we did is we came up with our own set of rules. The rules that we had did not dictate how thick the line should be, which now we have at 20 millimeters. We literally grabbed these very thin Sharpies. And so if you look at some very, very old pictures of Bad Axe, that's what the WATL targets used to look like. I think we used to use a bunch of different colors, and the lines were so thin that they kind of looked ugly in photographs, and it's so hard to see visually to see what you're gonna be hitting. And so we created the overall general rules. We said, hey, it's gonna be 10 throws. And the people who I will give a shout out to, there's a girl named Melanie St. Amour who used to work with me. She actually lived in Costa Rica at the time when we started drafting the rules. And the other person is Jesse Gutzman, who is our longtime managing director that pretty much manages all of Bad Axe across North America. So it's basically the 3 of us, and I think we have input from a few other staff members as well. But basically we just kind of brought together kind of our ideas and just dumped them on a page. And this is what the rules are gonna be, and we published them online. When we first had these rules and we created them internally for Bad Axe, we said, well, how can we share this with the world? Because people want more information, and I think it makes sense. So Melanie from our team actually started reaching out to other facilities. So first facilities we reached out to was Farshot, which is the head judge for WATL, Ben McDonald. So he was part of what we call the founding kind of fathers or the founding members of WATL that joined early on. There's also another venue out East Coast in Canada. Back then they were called Jack Axes. I believe now they go by the name of Halimac. And so, we started kind of contacting these venues and say, hey, we want to open up a global organization. Another one was actually out in Ireland. So the Ireland folks were part of the original crew. And the Ireland team actually fully focuses only on leagues. That's primarily what they do, and that's part of what their primary business model is. And so we started reaching out to these other facilities, and that's how WATL was formed. We actually went out and we said, hey, we think we could do something better if we're all together and we're all a part of this league. Now, we had the foundation set, and then we brought on a creative director at Bad Axe because we were growing fast and we needed someone to handle our creative needs. And so that gentleman's name was Evan Walters. And Evan Walters, as many of you know, became the commissioner of WATL, and he's the one that spearheaded the global growth of the sport. And so that's really how kind of WATL started. It started out as kind of a dual need. One, the need to make it a legitimate sport so it doesn't become a fad and it doesn't fade away. The second need was to actually help these entrepreneurs because they had a lot of questions like, how do I run leagues? Where am I throwing from? What are the rules? And we basically honestly wanted to also create a stable rule set that also set out some safety parameters. And some of the safety parameters that we have are what you see here, which are the cages. And And so the cages, help from any sort of odd ricochets that may happen. Ricochets left or right are honestly quite rare, but it does help in safety. And so we created a lot of these parameters of where you should be throwing from, having single rotation, and even making sure of subtle, simple things that you're not throwing an axe when there's already an axe on the target, or you're not throwing an axe while someone's walking down range. And so there's a lot of kind of things that we had put in place for WATL, but basically the origins stem from kind of that dual need of being able to help entrepreneurs, but then also being able to help the industry itself, so we make sure it's not a fad and it doesn't fade anywhere. So those are the origins of Watl. 2021, we have over 350 venues that are members of WATL globally and growing. And so we've had more tournaments this year than we've ever had in our history. We have a lot more TV events kind of coming up. You see us a lot on ESPN, and that's where a lot of the growth and popularity came from. Is just people seeing it on TV, wanting to be a part of it, joining a local league, or just going to their local venue and trying it out. So ultimately, we're able to help all these venues, whether it's Watl or non-Watl venues, by simply the reach that we have and the media and the attention that the sport gets through our members and through WATL ourselves. And so we've been covered very extensively, and especially during the shutdowns last year, I worked very actively in promoting the Quarantine Axe Throwing League, which was founded by the 3 Canadians that are part of the Watl Council. That's Gavin, Tristan, and Mike Morton. And so with the 3 of them, founding that, and then me essentially being kind of the media person, just getting people to build targets at home, that has actually helped a lot in getting people a lot more involved in the sport and propelling the sport kind of forward during COVID. And right now we're hitting record numbers, and we hope to continue that throughout 2021, 2022 and beyond. Make sure you join our leagues. We highly encourage it. It's extremely fun. It's a new sport, and it's not always competitive. It's basically like golf, and a lot of the throwers out there, your local venue might have a globally top-ranked thrower, or might have someone that's been throwing for 5-6 years or longer or less, but someone that's experienced that's wanting to help you. So I hope this kind of helps explain kind of where Watl came from, the origins of it, and basically kind of how we started versus where we are today. So it's been a huge amount of explosive growth. If you haven't already, make sure you follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube. We'll be producing a lot of great content. We'll be teaching you tips, tricks on how to get better at axe throwing, and we'll also be releasing a lot more new products that you'll be seeing this year. So thank you very much, everyone, for all your support. I appreciate you watching, and we'll talk soon.